I'll show you with example 1 what all this stuff means. So example 1, we are going to factorize the following. We're going to factorize x squared plus 7x plus 10. So that's our algebraic expression of interest. Factorizing means we want to write it as equal to something brackety times each other, so two bracketies. And this classifies as a quadratic because the highest power of your variable x is x squared. There's no x cubed, x4, anything higher than x squared, so it's a quadratic. This is considered as a monic because the number or the coefficient in front of the x squared is 1. There's one x squared, it's like a ninja 1 there. You don't see it, but it's actually there. Okay, so the trick to this is, right, so remember quadratics that we're dealing with right now has the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. So the first step to solving these problems is on the side, write down your a, b's, and c's, your coefficients, right? So a is the coefficient of your x squared term. So whatever number is in front of your x squared is always your a number. So in this case, a is 1 because there's 1 x squared. B is always the number in front of your x, single x value. In our case, we have 7x, so the number in front of this single x is 7. So our b value is 7. And lastly, c is the single number. There's no x's attached to c. So c is your single number by itself. In this case, our c value is 10. So we would write our a, b, and c values on the side. So this is like a side calc. And then the trick to factorizing monic quadratic trinomials is that you would draw a tiny little table on the side as part of your side calc. You would write plus b on the first column and times ac on the second column. What does this mean? Well, your b value is 7, so under your plus b column, you write your b value to be 7. Under your AC column, you write down what A times C equal to B. We have A is 1 and C is 10, so A times C gives me 10. Now you're thinking, okay, I have my numbers 7 and 10. I am thinking of two numbers, because it's two columns, two numbers that add to become 7. And then those two same numbers need to multiply to become 10. So let me repeat that. You're trying to think of two numbers, because there's two columns, that add to become 7, because that's plus b, and they multiply to become 10, because that's times AC. So what are two numbers that add to be 7 and multiply to be 10? So the way I tend to think about this is look at the factors of 10. What two numbers multiply to be 10? And of those variations or those combinations, which of those would add to be 7? Now, don't forget you can use positive and negative signs as well, because positive times negative is negative, but positive add negative could become a positive or negative number depending which one's bigger. But in this case, you're looking at factors of 10, so 1 times 10 is 10, but no matter how you add 1 and 10 or combine 1 and 10 together, you can't get 7. The other set of factor for 10, is 2 and 5, and of which they add to become 7. So one number is 2, the other number is 5. In fact, one is positive 2 and positive 5, because positive 2 times positive 5 gives you positive 10, and positive 2 plus positive 5 gives you positive 7. So then what you would do is you write a bracket back to your solution, a bracket. Because you have x squared, you would write x inside the two brackets. Now this is where your two numbers come in. We established that one number is positive 2 and the other number is positive 5. So in the first bracket, we write positive 2 or plus 2. In your second bracket, you would write positive 5 or plus 5. So that if you do decide to FOIL and expand these two brackets, you actually do end up getting back your original expression you wanted to start off with. Because x times x gives you x squared, x times 5 gives you 5x, 2 times x gives you 2x, so 5x plus 2x gives you 7x, and 2 times 5 gives you positive 10. So we started off with this monic quadratic trinomial because there's 3 terms, quadratic because the highest power of x is squared, and it's monic because the number in front of your x squared, the coefficient is 1. So let's do repeating this. The trick or the method to factorize quadratics or monic quadratics is on a side calc, write down your a, b's, and c's. A is the coefficient of x squared, the number in front of the x squared. B is the coefficient of x, or the number in front of your single x. And C is the number by itself where there's no x's involved. You draw a little table, 2-column table. Your first column is plus B, your second column is times AC. So you fill the first row in. B is 7, so you fill that 7 into the first entry. AC, A times C gives you 1 times 10 is 10, so that's where you get the second 10, the number 10 from. Then you're thinking, I need 2 numbers that add to be 7 because it's plus B, and you need the same 2 numbers to multiply to become 10. So it's times AC. The 2 numbers in this case that add to be 7 and multiply to be 10 are 2 and 5. In fact, positive 2 and positive 5. So that in your solution to factorize, you would go bracket, 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 x and x in the start because you have x squared. You go plus 2 or positive 2 because that's your first number, and then you have positive 5 or plus 5 in your second bracket as well because that's your second number. If you're wondering, what if I write positive 5 on the first entry and positive 2 in the second entry so that when I factorize, I get x plus 5 times x plus 2? Does the order matter? No, it doesn't, because when you expand your brackets, you're still going to end up with x squared plus 7x plus 10 because 2 times 3 is the same as 3 times 2. So really the order doesn't matter whether you put 2 first and 5 or 5 first and 2. Okay. So let's try this, or try another example, but just following the same pattern. So part B. Let's try and factorize x squared plus 2x minus 8. So on the side, the side calc, write down your a, b's, and c's. So a, what is the coefficient of x squared? What's the number in front of your x squared? 1, because there's 1x squared. What about B? What is the coefficient of your x value? Single x, not x squared, just a single x. Well, in this case, it's 2 because we have 2x. And what about C, your single number? No x's involved. What is your single number? It's negative 8. Don't forget to take the negative sign as well, okay? Because you take the number, you take the sign in front of it. So it's C is negative 8. So then you draw a tiny little table, a small table, plus B times AC. So filling in your table, B is 2, so underneath your B column you write 2. AC, A times C, so 1 times negative 8 gives you negative 8. So in your AC column you write down negative 8. So now you're thinking, I need 2 numbers that add to become 2 because it's plus B. And I need those 2 same numbers to multiply to become negative 8 because it's times AC. So what 2 numbers add to be 2 and multiply to be negative 8? So again, think of what are the factors of 8. What 2 numbers multiply together to be 8? Well, you can have 1 and 8 multiplied to be 8, or 2 and 4 multiplied to be 8. Now, between these 2 combinations, which of these numbers can somehow be manipulated to have a 2 gap difference between the numbers? Well, between 1 and 8, there's 7 gaps, right? There's no way you can get a 2 out of that. On the other hand, 2 and 4 there's a 2 difference, it's 2 number difference between 2 and 4. So 2 and 4 are 2 numbers that multiply to be 8 and add to be, or they subtract to be 2. Okay, so now this is where we think about the positive and negative signs, right? So 2 and 4 are my factors of interest. One of them has to be a negative number and one of them has to be a positive number in order for them to multiply to be negative 8. Because if both of them were negative, then they would multiply to be a positive 8, and that's not what we want. We want them to multiply to be negative 8. So one of the two numbers, so either it's negative 2 and positive 4, or positive 2 and negative 4. So you're thinking, well, which combination is it? So it's either negative 2 and positive 4, or positive 2 and negative 4. Well, aside from multiplying to become negative 8, we have the condition that they have to add to become 2. So if you go negative 2 plus 4, that's the same as 4 minus 2. Does that give you positive 2? Yes, it does. But if you consider the other case, a positive 2 minus 4, that actually ends up with a negative 2, as a sum, because 2 minus 4 gives you negative 2, and we did not want a negative 2, so that second option is not feasible. So really our final answer is minus 2 and positive 4, or minus 2 plus 4, because these two numbers multiply to become negative 8, because negative times positive is a negative, and they actually do add together to become a positive 2, because technically this is a positive 2. So 4 minus 2 gives you positive 2. So now that we have our two numbers that multiply to be negative 8 and add to be 2, we go back to our original question and we write equals, bracket, 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 because we're factorizing. Because it's only 1x squared, you put x at the start of the brackets. Now your first number was negative 2, in other words, minus 2. And your second number was positive 4, in other words, plus 4. And that's your answer. X minus 2 times x plus 4. Again, you can always check your work by FOIL and expanding your brackets. Well, x times x is x squared. X times 4 is 4x. Negative 2 times x gives you negative 2x. So this gives me, adding it together, to positive 2x. And then negative 2 times 4 gives you negative 8. Which is exactly what we wanted, because we wanted an x squared, positive 2x plus 2x, and then minus 8. So you know you've factorized it correctly, because if you expand it, you should get what you started off with. Let's do one more just to make sure we understand this whole table plus b times ac pattern. So let's look at part C. We're trying to factorize x squared minus 7x plus 10. So on the side, write your a, b, and c values. A, what's the coefficient of your x squared? Well, 1, because there's 1x squared. What's the coefficient of your single x? What's your b value? What's the number in front of your x? It's negative 7. Don't forget about the negative sign. Take the number, take the sign as well right in front of it. And your c value, the single number by itself, it would be 10, or positive 10. You would draw up your little table, plus b times ac table, plus b times ac. B is negative 7, so in my first column I would write down negative 7. AC, A value times C value gives me a positive 10. So I'm thinking of two numbers that add to become negative 7 and multiply to be 10. So if you think about the factors of 10, you either have 1 and 10 or 2 and 5. 2 and 5 immediately screams at me, because 2 and 5 you can combine them to become a 7. So I'm going to say 2 and 5. Now be careful, because you want them to add to become negative 7, right? But you want them to multiply to become a positive 10. So there's only two combinations. Either they're both positive, because a positive times positive is a positive number, or they're both negative, because negative times negative becomes positive, because a bad person leaving the class is good. So which option do we take? Well, we want them to add to negative 7. If we go positive 2 plus 5, we get a positive 7 as a sum, and that's not what we want. But if we take negative 2 plus negative 5, in total I do get a negative 7. So my two numbers of interest would then be minus 2 and minus 5, because minus 2 and minus 5 multiply together to become a positive 10, and they add together to become negative 7. So back in your question you would write equals, bracket, 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 bracket. Because it's 1x squared here, you would just throw in an x and a single x, not x squared, just x and x, because they multiply to be x squared. In your first bracket, you would write the number, the first number, which is minus 2 or take away 2. And then your second number is negative 5 or subtract 5. Again, whether you write x minus 5 times x minus 2, the order doesn't matter. The signs do, whether it's positive or negative. That's important. Again, you can check your answer by expanding. If you expanded your brackets using FOIL, so first outer inner last, will you get back x squared minus 7x plus 10? Yes, you will. So you know you factorized correctly for these monic quadratics if you can get your original question back by expanding, because factorizing and expanding are opposite operations. So that's pretty much it for